The following instructional presentation of the St. Agnes Reformatory is intended for educational purposes only. All scenarios are fictional, and all characters are above the age of 18. This video is a product of moral edification and is not to be consumed for prurient purposes or the furthering of wickedness or impropriety.
From the Journal of Dr. Edward Campbell, Family Therapist, a treatise on the value of corporal punishment in adult family situations. As a family therapist with over 2 decades of experience, I have arrived at a truth that many in our softened, permissive society shy away from. Corporal punishment, when applied with precision and purpose, is a cornerstone of familial harmony and personal growth. My conviction, particularly in the discipline of adult daughters, is not a relic of outdated tradition, but a reasoned, evidence-based conclusion drawn from years of observation, study, and practice. I am unapologetic in my belief that a firm hand, literal and metaphorical, cultivates respect, accountability, and moral clarity in young women, especially those who remain unmarried and under their father's guidance. This journal entry serves to articulate the philosophy that underpins my approach, the journey that led me to it, and why I employ it with unwavering confidence. My path to this understanding began in my early years as a therapist, when I encountered families unraveling under the weight of unchecked behaviors. Defiance, entitlement, and emotional volatility were common threads in fractured households, particularly among young adults who lacked clear boundaries. I observed that modern parenting, with its emphasis on dialogue over discipline, often failed to instill the structure necessary for personal and familial stability. My academic background in psychology, coupled with extensive research into historical family dynamics, revealed a stark contrast. Societies that embraced physical correction, from Victorian England to early American homesteads, often enjoyed tighter familial bonds and lower rates of juvenile delinquency. These findings were not mere anecdotes, but patterns, corroborated by sociological studies and first-hand accounts. The data spoke clearly. Discipline, when consistent and rooted in love, produced results that no amount of verbal negotiation could match. My focus on adult daughters stems from a recognition of their unique role in the family unit. Unmarried daughters, particularly those in their late teens and 20s, occupy a transitional space, neither fully independent nor wholly dependent. Without firm guidance, they risk developing habits of irresponsibility or rebellion that can destabilize their futures and the family's cohesion. I reject the notion that adulthood negates the need for parental oversight. Rather, it demands a tailored approach. Spanking, as a form of corporal punishment, serves as a tangible, immediate consequence that bridges the gap between abstract values and concrete behavior. It is not about inflicting pain, but about signaling a return to accountability, a reset, if you will, that reorients the individual toward humility and respect. My own daughters are living testaments to the efficacy of this approach. Each has thrived under a regimen of regular, structured discipline, growing into women of character and grace. I introduced corporal punishment in our household when Margaret, the eldest, was 18 7 years ago, after noticing subtle shifts in her demeanor, sassing her mother, neglecting chores, testing boundaries. A single, well-administered spanking, followed by a calm discussion, transformed her attitude overnight. The change was not merely behavioral, but emotional. She expressed gratitude for the clarity it brought. Clara and Elizabeth, initially skeptical, witnessed the change in her, and as each of them turned 18, soon embraced the practice as a symbol of our family's commitment to mutual accountability. Their academic achievements, strong work ethics, and respectful interactions with others validate my methods daily. Critics might call this anecdotal, but I challenge them to find a family as cohesive as ours without such structure. The mechanics of my approach are deliberate. I use a wooden paddle crafted specifically for this purpose, smooth, broad, and designed to deliver a firm but controlled impact. The ritual is private, conducted in my study with the daughter standing before me to reflect on her actions. The number of swats, typically 10, is predetermined to ensure consistency, though I adjust for severity based on the offense. The act is not impulsive but ceremonial, paired with a discussion of the behavior in question and its impact on the family. This combination of physical correction and verbal reinforcement ensures the lesson is internalized. I reject accusations of cruelty. My daughters know each spanking is an act of love, a commitment to their growth and the preservation of our family's values. My philosophy is not without its detractors, and I welcome their scrutiny. Modern psychology often dismisses corporal punishment as archaic or abusive, citing studies that conflate measured discipline with unchecked violence. I counter that these studies lack nuance, failing to distinguish between abuse and structured correction. My own research, including case studies from my practice, shows that families who adopt my methods report stronger communication, reduced conflict, and greater emotional resilience. I have no patience for the hand-wringing of those who equate firmness with harm. Their permissiveness has led to a generation of entitled, directionless young adults. My daughters, by contrast, are grounded, purposeful, and deeply connected to our family's ethos. The moral underpinning of my approach is rooted in a belief that discipline is an expression of love. To spare the rod, as the proverb warns, is to spoil the child, or in this case, the young woman. By setting clear expectations and enforcing them consistently, I provide my daughters with a framework for success. They know that lapses, whether in respect, responsibility, or integrity, will be met with consequences, not endless negotiation. This clarity frees them to focus on their goals, secure in the knowledge that their father's guidance is unwavering. It is no coincidence that Clara excels in her studies. Margaret runs her own small business, and Elizabeth mentors younger women in our community. Their discipline is their strength. I also acknowledge the cultural context in which I operate. Our society, obsessed with individual autonomy, recoils at the idea of parental authority over adults. Yet I argue that this aversion is precisely why so many families struggle. My daughters, while independent in thought, remain under my roof and thus my responsibility. Their unmarried status reinforces this dynamic. Until they enter a new household, they benefit from my oversight. This is not oppression but stewardship, a duty I take seriously. My wife, a partner in this philosophy, supports the practice, recognizing its role in maintaining our family's harmony. Her quiet strength during these rituals, offering tea and conversation afterward, reinforces the love that underpins our discipline. In my practice, I extend this philosophy to clients who seek it, though I am careful to ensure consent and alignment with their values. Families who embrace corporal punishment under my guidance report transformative results. Daughters who once defied their parents become cooperative, husbands and wives find renewed respect, and households regain stability. My methods are not a one-size-fits-all solution, but for those willing to commit, they are unparalleled in their effectiveness. I have no doubt that my approach is correct, not out of arrogance, but because the evidence, both personal and professional, is undeniable. Corporal punishment, far from being a relic, is a timeless tool for shaping character and preserving family unity. I stand by it with the full weight of my experience, confident that it is not only effective, but necessary. My daughter's strength, my client's gratitude, and my own family's harmony are proof enough. I will continue to wield the paddle with care, conviction, and love, knowing that discipline, rightly applied, is the foundation of a flourishing life. I would like to take a moment to explain why my philosophy is that corporal punishment must be reserved for adults. As a family therapist, my commitment to discipline is unwavering, yet I hold a firm conviction that one should not strike the young. This stance, rooted in both observation and principle, contrasts sharply with my advocacy for spanking adult daughters, a practice I believe is uniquely effective. Children require guidance and care, not pain, to navigate their formative years. Adults, however, often respond best to the stark clarity of physical correction, particularly when the shame of being disciplined like a child amplifies its impact. Let me explain this distinction, addressing why I reserve the paddle for those of mature age and why society's misconceptions about spanking enhance its efficacy for adult daughters. Children are fragile in their development, their minds and emotions still forming. They lack the full capacity to understand the consequences of their actions, often acting out of impulse or ignorance rather than malice. To subject a child to physical punishment risks instilling fear rather than understanding, potentially scarring their emotional growth. In my practice, I've seen children thrive under firm but gentle guidance. Consequences like lost privileges, timeouts, or structured tasks teach accountability without breaking trust. For instance, a 12-year-old who skips homework might lose screen time, a tangible lesson that connects behavior to outcome. Pain, however, clouds this lesson, as a child may focus on the hurt rather than the reason behind it. My own daughters, when younger, were disciplined with such methods. Clara lost her favorite books for neglecting chores. Margaret faced restricted outings for backtalk. These measures corrected behavior while preserving their sense of safety. Children need leeway, a space to err and learn without harsh repercussions. Their mistakes are often experiments in understanding the world, and a parent's role is to guide, not dominate. This approach fosters self-awareness, which children need to develop before facing the stricter accountability of adulthood. My philosophy is clear. Discipline for children must nurture, not punish, their growing sense of self. Adults, by contrast, possess the cognitive maturity to understand their actions fully. Any action taken by a grown woman must be assumed to be intentional and carried out with full knowledge of the consequences. My daughters, Clara, Margaret, and Elizabeth, are 19, 22, and 25 years of age, respectively. They live under my roof, unmarried, and thus remain under my guidance. They do not always like my discipline, but they accept that the choice is to observe my rules or live elsewhere. Their lapses, whether procrastination or disrespect, are choices, not accidents. Corporal punishment, with its immediate visceral impact, speaks a language adults cannot ignore. The paddle, applied firmly to bare skin, cuts through rationalizations, forcing a reckoning with responsibility. This is not cruelty, but love, a commitment to their virtue and moral clarity. The act resets their focus, reminding them of their duty to family and self. Society, however, views spanking as a child's punishment, a perception I leverage to great effect. When an adult daughter is disciplined over my lap, the paddle's sting is amplified by the shame of being treated like a child. This societal lens makes the experience profoundly humbling for Clara, Margaret, and Elizabeth. Clara's flushed cheeks after a spanking reflect not just the paddle's mark, but the embarrassment of being corrected in a manner society deems childlike. This shame, far from harmful, is a powerful motivator, driving them to uphold their virtue to avoid such humbling again. Margaret, fiercely independent, feels this acutely. Her submission to the paddle reinforces her humility. Elizabeth, ever composed, accepts it as a reminder of her place in our family's structure. The societal stigma, rather than undermining my approach, enhances its corrective power. Critics may argue that corporal punishment, even for adults, is outdated. I counter that its effectiveness lies in its simplicity and immediacy, qualities children cannot fully process, but adults can. My daughter's discipline has forged their strength and respect, outcomes I've replicated in my practice. Children need nurturing consequences. Adults need the paddle's sharp lesson, heightened by society's view of it as childish. This contrast is not a contradiction, but a deliberate strategy, ensuring discipline serves its purpose at every stage of life. Now let us move on to a practical demonstration of my disciplinary methods. I invite you to envision yourself in my study on a Sunday evening, when maintenance spanking is carried out in my household. The air in my study holds a quiet reverence, thick with the weight of tradition. The room, with its polished mahogany desk, leather-bound books, and the soft glow of a brass lamp, is a sanctuary of discipline. The deep green walls, the intricate Persian rug, and the faint scent of cedar create an atmosphere of solemnity, underscoring the gravity of our weekly maintenance spankings. My daughters enter at precisely 7 p.m., their cotton dresses simple, their hair neatly tied back. They walk quietly in bare feet, underscoring their innocence and acceptance of their father's authority. They know this ritual, non-negotiable while they remain unmarried and under my roof, is a cornerstone of our family's unity. It is a deliberate act of love, preserving their virtue and innocence through the stern application of the paddle. Tonight, as always, the process unfolds with measured care, though a moment of resistance tests my unwavering resolve. Each daughter stands before my desk, hands clasped, as I sit in my high-backed chair. The oak paddle, its smooth, broad surface gleaming under the lamplight, rests on the blotter, a symbol of correction, crafted to deliver firm but controlled discipline. I never raise my voice, for discipline should be delivered with clarity and never anger. I invite them to reflect on their week, confessing lapses in behavior, missed deadlines, sharp words, or neglected duties. This act of confession grounds the ritual in accountability, ensuring it is not mere punishment, but a path to moral clarity. Clara, the youngest, steps forward first, her voice soft as she admits to procrastinating on a college assignment, a habit that threatens her academic virtue. Her cheeks flush as she speaks, her eyes darting nervously. I nod, acknowledging her honesty, and gesture for her to approach. She hesitates, her fingers twisting together.
Papa,
She ventures, her tone respectful but trembling.
aren't we too old for this? I'm 19. It feels wrong to be spanked like a child.
Margaret stifles a smirk. Elizabeth's gaze drops to the rug. They have both tried this when Clara was younger, before she was subjected to the spanking ritual, so she does not yet know that such pleas will not be heard. I lean forward, my voice steady and unyielding. Clara, virtue knows no age. While you remain under my care, unmarried, it is my duty to guide you. This paddle preserves your innocence, ensuring you grow into a woman of character. Her lips part, searching for a rebuttal, but my gaze holds firm. Over my lap, I instruct, patting my knee. She exhales, defeated, and moves forward, her steps slow but obedient. I position Clara carefully across my lap, her torso resting against my thighs, her hands gripping the chair's armrests. My left arm presses gently but firmly across her back, holding her in place to prevent any squirming. I lift her dress, folding it neatly above her waist, and lower her undergarments, exposing her bare skin, a necessity to ensure the discipline is felt deeply, reinforcing its moral weight. The room falls silent, save for the steady ticking of the grandfather clock. I raise the paddle, its weight a familiar extension of my resolve, and deliver the first swat. The sharp crack reverberates, and Clara gasps, her body tensing under my hold. A vivid pink flush blooms across her skin, a mark of consequence. I pause, letting the sting settle, then deliver the next, each stroke deliberate, spaced to intensify the lesson. Her legs twitch, but my arm keeps her steady, ensuring she absorbs the full measure of discipline. By the 10th swat, her skin glows a warm red, and her breath is ragged. I help her stand, my tone softening. Well done, Clara. She nods, eyes glistening, and adjusts her dress, her composure returning as she steps aside. Margaret, ever confident, approaches next. She confesses to snapping at her mother over a work schedule dispute, a lapse in respect that undermines her virtue. She lifts her dress without prompting, positioning herself over my lap, her defiance tempered by acceptance. My arm secures her firmly, her bare skin pale under the lamplight. The paddle's first strike lands with a crisp thud, and Margaret clenches her jaw, determined to remain stoic. The second swat draws a faint wince, the pink hue spreading. By the fourth, her fingers dig into the armrests, her body straining against my hold. Each stroke is a measured reminder of her duty to honor her family, the paddle's impact resonating through the quiet room. I maintain a steady rhythm, ensuring each swat builds on the last, the heat rising in her skin. By the 10th, her breathing is uneven, her face flushed with effort. She rises, meeting my eyes with a nod.
Thank you, Papa.
She says, her voice steady, acknowledging the correction's purpose. She rejoins her sisters, her posture unbowed. Elizabeth, the eldest, approaches last. Her week has been exemplary, but she submits to the ritual to preserve humility, a virtue she holds dear. She drapes herself over my lap with grace, her dress lifted, her undergarments lowered. My arm rests firmly across her back, securing her as the paddle delivers its first resonant strike. Her skin, familiar from years of this practice, takes on a soft, pink glow. Elizabeth remains still, her breathing even, embodying the discipline she's internalized. Each swat deepens the color, the paddle's weight a solemn reminder of her commitment to innocence. By the 10th, her skin is a uniform warmth, and she rises with serene dignity, adjusting her clothing.
Thank you, Papa,
She says, her voice calm, reflecting the strength this ritual fosters. The spankings complete, I set the paddle aside, and the atmosphere softens. My daughters sit on the leather sofa, their faces relaxed, despite the lingering sting. My wife, Eleanor, enters with a tray of chamomile tea, her presence a quiet affirmation of our shared values. We discuss the week ahead, Clara's exams, Margaret's business plans, Elizabeth's mentoring. Laughter punctuates the warmth, the intensity of the paddle fading into a renewed sense of unity. This ritual, vivid in its execution, is an act of love, preserving their virtue and innocence through strict, unwavering discipline. As I reflect, I see the study's elegance, the rich textures, the soft light, as a fitting frame for this sacred duty. Clara's protest, though fleeting, only strengthens my conviction. This is not about age, but about character. The paddle's sharp reports, the flush of skin, the firm hold to keep them in place, all are expressions of my love, ensuring my daughters remain women of virtue. Their resilience, their trust, their smiles as we sip tea confirm the correctness of this path. This ritual, intense and unyielding, is the heartbeat of our home, safeguarding their innocence and our family's strength. I will allow the listener to take a moment to pause and recover, just as I do after delivering correction. It is not easy to spank my precious daughters that I love more than my own life. But it is because of this love that I do not stay my hand. A brief moment of pain now may prevent much more pain later. Over the years, I have witnessed the transformative power of corporal punishment in restoring harmony to fractured households. My approach, particularly with adult daughters, is not a throwback to outdated norms, but a deliberate evidence-based method to foster respect, accountability, and familial cohesion. In my practice, I guide husbands, wives, parents, and daughters toward structured disciplinary frameworks, emphasizing the necessity of physical correction to realign behavior with shared values. To you, the reader, I offer a clear case for why this practice, when applied with precision, consent, and love, is not only effective, but essential for families seeking lasting unity. Let me illustrate how I integrate corporal discipline into therapy, drawing on real outcomes to convince you of its correctness. My philosophy rests on a simple truth. Families thrive on structure, and structure requires consequences. Modern parenting often leans on dialogue alone, but words without tangible reinforcement can ring hollow. I've seen this in countless sessions, parents frustrated by defiant daughters, husbands and wives locked in cycles of resentment, households unraveling for lack of clear boundaries. Corporal punishment, particularly for adult daughters still under parental guidance, provides an immediate, Physical reminder of accountability. It's not about pain, but about clarity. A reset that cuts through emotional noise to reaffirm family roles. Consider the Thompsons, a family I counseled last year. Their 23-year-old daughter, Emily, was a source of constant tension, disrespectful to her parents, neglectful of responsibilities, and dismissive of household rules. Her behavior strained family dinners and eroded trust. After assessing their dynamic, I proposed a disciplinary framework centered on corporal punishment. The Thompsons were initially hesitant, conditioned by society's aversion to physical correction. I explained that spanking, when structured and consensual, is not abuse, but a tool for restoration. I guided them to establish clear rules. Emily would receive a weekly spanking for infractions like disrespect or missed chores, administered by her father with a leather strap. The process would be private, predictable, and paired with a discussion to ensure understanding. I coached Mr. Thompson on technique, using a firm but controlled stroke, targeting the bare skin to maximize impact without harm. The first session, which I observed to ensure proper execution, was a turning point. Emily, positioned over her father's lap, received 10 measured swats, each leaving a rosy mark that faded within hours. The physical act, vivid yet brief, shifted her demeanor. She later admitted to feeling grounded for the first time in years, the sting of the strap a tangible reminder of her parents' authority and love. Over 6 months, the Thompsons reported a transformed household. Emily's defiance waned. She contributed to chores, and family conversations became warm again. The strap, used consistently, became a symbol of their commitment to unity. This success is not isolated. Another client, the Martins, faced a different challenge. A strained marriage exacerbated by their 20-year-old daughter's erratic behavior. Sarah's late nights and dismissive attitude toward her mother fueled arguments between Mr. and Mrs. Martin. I introduced corporal punishment as a family-wide solution, starting with Sarah. With her consent, she was eager for change. Her mother took on the disciplinary role, a dynamic less common but effective for their matriarchal structure. I provided Mrs. Martin with a lightweight paddle and detailed instructions. 5 to 10 swats, bare bottom, in a private setting, followed by a discussion of expectations. The first spanking, though awkward, was a breakthrough. Sarah, tearful but relieved, described it as waking up to her responsibilities. Within weeks, her behavior stabilized, and the Martins' marital tension eased as they united in their approach. Mrs. Martin later adopted a similar framework for herself, accepting occasional spankings from her husband to reinforce mutual accountability. Their marriage, once on the brink, is now stronger than ever. Please bear with me for one more case study, for not all instances of corporal punishment go so smoothly. The Reynolds family sought my guidance to address their 19-year-old daughter, Abigail, whose resentment and defiance strained their household. Abigail, a college freshman living at home, frequently disregarded curfews and argued with her parents, eroding family harmony. I proposed a framework centered on weekly spankings to instill accountability. Initially resistant, Abigail's journey to acceptance became a lesson in patience and diligence for her family. I coached Mr. Reynolds to administer 10 bare-bottom swats with a leather strap, ensuring privacy and a post-spanking discussion. Abigail's first session was fraught with defiance. She stormed out, calling the practice humiliating and unfair. Her parents, committed to my guidance, remained firm, enforcing the ritual weekly despite her protests. For months, Abigail's resentment persisted. Sullen silences, begrudging compliance, and occasional tears marked each session. Her bare skin, flushed red under the strap's measured strokes, bore the physical mark of correction, but her attitude remained defiant. I urged patience, emphasizing that true change requires time. By the 6th month, subtle shifts emerged. Abigail began reflecting on her curfew violations during discussions, admitting her actions disrupted family trust. The strap's sting, paired with her parents' unwavering consistency, chipped away at her resistance. By the 9th month, she apologized for past defiance, acknowledging the discipline's role in grounding her. Now, 2 years later, Abigail, still under her parents' roof, accepts weekly spankings as a humbling reminder of her responsibilities. Her grades have improved, and family dinners are warm again. The Reynolds' diligence, holding firm through Abigail's resentment, proved that disciplined love, though slow to take root, can transform even the most reluctant heart. You may question the ethics of this practice, particularly for adults. I assure you, consent is paramount. I only work with families who agree to the framework, and I emphasize clear communication to ensure all parties understand the purpose, not humiliation, but growth. My protocols are rigorous, spankings are private, never impulsive, and limited to a set number of strokes, typically 10, to avoid excess. The implement, whether paddle or strap, is chosen for its ability to deliver a sharp but safe correction. The bare bottom approach, while intimate, ensures the lesson is felt without requiring undue force. Post-spanking discussions reinforce the emotional bond, turning a physical act into a relational one. This structure eliminates the chaos of arbitrary punishment, replacing it with a ritual that strengthens trust. Critics often cite studies claiming corporal punishment fosters aggression or trauma. I counter that these studies conflate abuse with discipline, ignoring the nuance of intent and execution. My own case files, spanning hundreds of families, show the opposite: reduced conflict, improved communication, and stronger bonds. Daughters who once clashed with parents become cooperative. Wives and husbands find renewed respect. The physicality of a spanking, its immediacy, its vividness, cuts through the defensiveness that verbal arguments often entrench. It's a language of consequence that transcends age, particularly for unmarried daughters who benefit from continued parental guidance. I anticipate your skepticism about applying this to adults. Yet consider the alternative: a society where young adults, unmoored by boundaries, drift into entitlement or dysfunction. My daughters, disciplined through their 20s, are proof that structure fosters freedom. Clara, my youngest, excels academically. Margaret runs a thriving business. Elizabeth mentors others with grace. Their spankings, far from infantilizing them, have honed their resilience. In therapy, I see similar outcomes. Daughters who embrace discipline become women of purpose. Families who adopt it find unity. Even husbands and wives, when mutually agreed upon, benefit from this dynamic, as it clarifies roles and diffuses power struggles. To you, the reader, I pose a challenge. Examine the state of modern families. Divorce rates climb, parent-child relationships fray, and respect erodes under the weight of permissiveness. My approach, rooted in tradition, yet refined by experience, offers a solution. It's not about returning to a bygone era, but about reclaiming what works, clear consequences delivered with love to forge stronger bonds. The paddle or strap, wielded with care, is a tool of restoration, not repression. My clients' testimonials, parents tearfully grateful, daughters newly respectful, confirm its value. I invite you to consider this not as a relic, but as a remedy, one that can heal families willing to embrace its discipline. As I conclude, I stand firm in my conviction. Corporal punishment, when structured and consensual, is a powerful force for good. It has transformed my family and countless others, proving its correctness through tangible results. You may hesitate, conditioned by a culture that fears firmness, but I urge you to look at the evidence. Stronger families, grounded individuals, restored harmony. This is not cruelty, but commitment, a path to a flourishing family life.
Please consider becoming a member of this page for regular bonus videos, priority replies in comments, and even individualized governess attention tailored to your needs. If you need the guidance of St. Agnes in your life, we are happy to provide it.